Okay, so you want to own a grocery store. You've been inside thousands of them. You've watched the lines at checkout, seen the carts full of food, done the math on how much people spend, $100, $200, sometimes $300 per visit. Multiply that by a few hundred customers a day, 7 days a week, and it looks like a gold mine. There are roughly 63,000 grocery stores in the United States. Together, they generate over $800 billion in annual revenue. People need food. They buy it every week. It's the most recession-proof business in America. It sounds like the safest investment you could make. It is not. The average grocery store in the United States operates on a net profit margin of between 1% and 3%. 1 to 3%. For every $100 a customer spends, you keep $1 to $3. The other $97 to $99 goes to the suppliers who sold you the products, the employees who stocked the shelves, the utilities that kept the lights on, the credit card companies that processed the payment, and the dozen other costs embedded in running a business with razor-thin margins and relentless competition. The average independent grocery store owner, after paying for inventory, labor, rent, utilities, insurance, and shrink, which is industry speak for theft, spoilage, and damage, takes home between $40,000 and $80,000 a year. At a well-located store with strong sales, that number can reach $150,000 to $250,000. At a poorly located store, it can be zero. Or negative. By the end of this video, you will understand why the grocery business is one of the hardest retail categories to survive in. You will understand what it costs to open a store, what it costs to keep it open, and why the chains, Walmart, Kroger, Albertsons, are winning a war that independent operators can barely afford to fight. And you will understand the one number that determines whether you make money or go bankrupt, and it's not revenue. Let's start with what it actually costs to get in. Building or opening a new grocery store from scratch requires between $500,000 and $2.5 million, depending on size, location, and format. That covers build-out or renovation costs, refrigeration and shelving equipment, point-of-sale systems, initial inventory, permits, and the working capital you'll need to survive the first 6 months while you build a customer base. A small independent grocery store, 3,000 to 5,000 square feet, in a neighborhood location, costs around $500,000 to $800,000 to open. That includes basic shelving, a few refrigerated cases, freezers, checkout stations, and enough inventory to fill the shelves. It does not include the real estate. If you're leasing, expect to pay $3,000 to $10,000 per month, depending on the market. If you're buying the property, add another $300,000 to $1.5 million to the upfront cost, depending on where you are. A mid-size grocery store, 10,000 to 15,000 square feet, the kind you'd find in a suburban strip mall, costs $1.2 million to $2 million to open. Larger footprint, more refrigeration, more inventory, more staff. Monthly lease on a space like this runs $8,000 to $25,000, depending on location. A full-size supermarket, 30,000 to 50,000 square feet, requires $3 million to $10 million in upfront capital. At that scale, you're not an independent operator anymore. You're either a franchisee of a regional chain, or you have investors. The economics change completely. For the purpose of this analysis, let's focus on what most people mean when they say they want to own a grocery store. A small to mid-size independent operation. You've raised or borrowed $1 million. You've leased a 5,000 square foot space in a decent neighborhood. You've bought shelving, refrigeration, a POS system, and stocked the store with $150,000 worth of inventory. You're ready to open. Here's what happens next. Grocery stores make money on volume, not margin. The business model is built around turning over inventory as quickly as possible, while keeping costs low enough that the 1% to 3% profit margin on each sale adds up to something meaningful at the end of the month. Let's say your store generates $50,000 in weekly sales. That's a realistic number for a small neighborhood grocery doing moderate business. Over a year, that's $2.6 million in revenue. Sounds good. Now let's talk about where that money goes. The cost of goods sold, the amount you pay your suppliers for the products you sell, accounts for 70% to 75% of revenue in a typical grocery store. On $2.6 million in sales, that's $1.82 million to $1.95 million going to suppliers. You're left with $650,000 to $780,000 in gross profit. That's what you have to cover everything else. Labor is the next largest cost. Grocery stores require staff. Cashiers, stockers, managers, someone to handle receiving and inventory. The average grocery store allocates 10 to 15% of revenue to labor. On $2.6 million, that's $260,000 to $390,000 per year. For a small store, that might be 6 to 10 employees working shifts, most at or near minimum wage. In states with higher minimum wages, California, New York, Washington, labor costs can push closer to 18% of revenue. Rent or mortgage payments. If you're leasing 5,000 square feet at $8,000 per month, that's $96,000 per year. If you bought the property, your debt service might be higher depending on how much you financed. Utilities. Grocery stores are energy intensive. Refrigeration runs 24 hours a day. Lighting, heating, cooling for customer comfort. A small to mid-sized store pays $2,000 to $5,000 per month in utilities, depending on climate and energy costs. That's $24,000 to $60,000 per year. Insurance. Liability coverage, property insurance, workers' compensation. For a grocery store, expect $15,000 to $40,000 annually, depending on size, location, and claims history. Credit card processing fees. This is the cost no one talks about. Grocery stores operate on thin margins, and credit card companies take 2% to 3% of every transaction. On $2.6 million in sales, if 70% of customers pay by card, that's $36,000 to $55,000 per year going to Visa, MasterCard, and the payment processors. You have no choice. Customers expect to pay by card. You eat the fee. Shrink. Theft, spoilage, damaged goods, expired products you have to throw away. Industry average is 1.5% to 2% of revenue. On $2.6 million, that's $39,000 to $52,000 per year in pure loss. Marketing and advertising. If you want customers to know you exist, you're spending on local ads, flyers, social media, loyalty programs. Budget $10,000 to $30,000 per year for a small store. Maintenance and repairs, refrigeration breaks, shelving wears out, floors need cleaning, parking lots need maintenance. Budget another $10,000 to $25,000 annually. Miscellaneous costs. Licenses, permits, accounting, legal, waste removal, cleaning supplies, bags, receipt paper. Another $15,000 to $30,000. Add it all up. On $2.6 million in annual revenue, your total operating expenses run between $2.5 million and $2.58 million. Your net profit, if everything goes well, if you control shrink, if labor stays efficient, if utilities don't spike, is somewhere between $20,000 and $100,000 per year. That's less than 1% to 4% net margin on a business that required $1 million to open. And here's the thing. Those numbers assume you're hitting $50,000 a week in sales. If you're doing $30,000 a week because the location isn't as strong as you thought, or a competitor opened nearby, your revenue drops to $1.56 million. Your costs don't drop proportionally. Rent stays the same. Utilities stay close. You still need staff. Suddenly, you're not making $50,000 a year. You're breaking even, or losing money. Now let's talk about what you're actually competing against. Walmart, Kroger, Albertsons, Costco, Amazon Fresh, Whole Foods. These are not just competitors. They are systems built to eliminate you. Walmart operates over 4,600 stores in the United States. Their revenue in 2024 was $648 billion. They have supply chain infrastructure, distribution centers, purchasing power, and logistics capabilities that allow them to sell products at prices you cannot match. When Walmart negotiates with Procter & Gamble or Coca-Cola, they're ordering in quantities that represent a material percentage of that supplier's total revenue. They get pricing you will never see. You, as an independent grocery store owner, are ordering from a regional distributor who is ordering from the same suppliers, adding their markup at each step. The gallon of milk that Walmart sells for $3.49, you're paying $3.20 wholesale. You have to sell it for $4.50 just to make your margin. The customer sees that price difference and shops at Walmart. Kroger operates 2,800 stores under 24 banners. They own their own distribution network. They have private label brands that carry 40% to 50% gross margins compared to 20% to 25% on national brands. They run loyalty programs backed by data science teams that track purchasing behavior and target promotions with precision you can't afford. Costco's entire model is membership fees. They make almost all their profit, $4.6 billion in 2024, from the $65 to $130 annual fees members pay. The products themselves are sold near cost. They can undercut you on price and still make money because their business model doesn't rely on product margin. Yours does. Amazon Fresh doesn't even need to be profitable. It's a customer acquisition tool for Amazon Prime. They lose money on grocery delivery because the goal is ecosystem lock-in. They have the capital to sustain losses indefinitely. You don't. This is the competitive environment. You're not competing on equal footing. You're competing with one hand tied behind your back, using a pricing structure that doesn't allow you to win on cost, against opponents who have unlimited capital and supply chain advantages you cannot replicate. So how do independent grocery stores survive? The ones that do survive, and some do, compete on things the chains can't or won't provide. Location. You're in a neighborhood where the nearest Walmart is 15 minutes away. Customers pay a premium for convenience. You're the corner store. You're walkable. You're local. Specialty products. You stock items the chains don't carry. Ethnic foods, organic produce, local brands, niche products that serve a specific community. Your customers can't get these items at Safeway, so they come to you. Service. You know your customers by name. You special order products. You provide a level of personal attention that doesn't exist in a 50,000 square foot supermarket, where the staff turns over every 6 months. Prepared foods. Some independent grocers survive by adding a deli, a bakery, hot food bars, made-to-order sandwiches. The margins on prepared food are significantly better than packaged goods, 40% to 60% gross margin, compared to 25% to 30% on grocery items. If you can shift even 20% of your revenue to prepared foods, your overall profitability changes. But all of these strategies require additional capital, additional labor, additional expertise. A deli requires a commercial kitchen, health permits, staff who know how to cook. Specialty products require sourcing relationships and customer education. Service requires hiring people who care, paying them enough to stay, and managing them well enough that they don't burn out. And even with all of that, your margin is still 1% to 3%. You're still one bad quarter away from trouble. Let's talk about shrink, because this is where grocery stores quietly bleed to death. Shrink is theft, spoilage, and error. Someone steals a steak. A case of lettuce goes bad before you sell it. A cashier rings up organic bananas as regular bananas. The customer gets a discount. You eat the loss. The industry average is 1.5% to 2% of revenue, but that's an average. In high theft locations, urban areas, stores near transit hubs, shrink can hit 3 to 5%. On $2.6 million in revenue, the difference between 1.5% shrink and 4% shrink is $65,000. That's the difference between profit and loss. Theft is constant. Customers walk out with items. Employees skim from the register or take product home. Organized retail crime rings hit stores for high-value items, razors, baby formula, meat, cosmetics, and resell them online or to other retailers. You can install cameras, hire security, implement inventory controls, but all of that costs money, and it doesn't stop the problem, it just reduces it. Spoilage is worse because it's invisible until it's too late. You overorder produce because you don't want to run out. Half of it doesn't sell before it wilts. You throw it away. You overorder dairy because the distributor has minimum order quantities. Product expires. You pull it from the shelf and eat the cost. Fresh products, the items that bring customers into the store, are also the items with the highest waste rates. Some grocery stores have implemented dynamic pricing, markdowns on products nearing expiration, donation programs, composting, but all of that requires systems, labor, and partnerships. And at the end of the day, you're still operating in an industry where 2% of your revenue disappears before it ever reaches the register. Now let's talk about the cash flow problem. Grocery stores pay suppliers before they get paid by customers. You order $50,000 worth of inventory. The distributor gives you net 30 terms, meaning you have 30 days to pay. You stock the shelves. Over the next 2 weeks, customers buy the products. Most pay by credit card. The credit card processor takes 2% to 3% and deposits the money into your account within 2 to 3 business days. Sounds fine, except you're constantly reordering. The shelves don't stay full on their own. You're placing orders weekly, sometimes daily for fresh products. You're paying last week's invoices while this week's sales are still pending. If sales slow down, if customers don't come in as expected, you're stuck with inventory you've already paid for and cash flow that doesn't cover next week's orders. This is how grocery stores fail. Not because they're unprofitable on paper, but because they run out of cash. They can't pay the distributor. The distributor cuts them off. The shelves go empty. Customers stop coming. The business collapses. Banks know this. That's why getting a loan to open a grocery store is hard. The failure rate is high. The margins are low. The cash flow is unpredictable. Lenders want to see industry experience, strong personal credit, significant collateral. If you're a first-time operator, you're funding this out of pocket or through investors who understand the risk. Let's talk about what happens when a competitor moves in. You've been operating for 3 years, you're doing $50,000 a week. You're profitable, barely, but it's working. Then a Trader Joe's opens half a mile away, or an Aldi, or a Whole Foods. Your sales drop 20% in the first month, then 30%. Customers are curious. They try the new store. Some come back to you. Most don't. Your revenue falls to $35,000 a week. Your costs don't fall. Rent is the same. Utilities are the same. You can cut labor, but not much. You still need someone to open and close, to stock shelves, to run the register. Suddenly, you're losing $3,000 a month. You dip into savings. You defer maintenance. You stop taking a salary. You hope it stabilizes. Sometimes it does, often it doesn't. This is the reality of the grocery business. You don't control demand. You don't control competition. You're reacting to forces larger than you, and your margin is too thin to absorb shocks. There are roughly 63,000 grocery stores in the United States. 20 years ago, there were over 70,000. The industry has been consolidating. Small independents close. Chains expand. Walmart alone accounts for over 20% of all grocery sales in the country. The independent grocery store is not dead, but it's not thriving. The ones that survive are the ones with a specific advantage: a protected location, a community that values local ownership enough to pay a premium, a niche that the chains don't serve, an owner who works 70 hours a week and takes less salary than they could earn managing someone else's store. The average independent grocery store owner is not getting rich. They're earning a living, sometimes a good one, by running a business with unforgiving margins, relentless competition, and operational complexity that never stops. Inventory turns over weekly. Employees quit. Equipment breaks. Customers complain about prices you can't lower without losing money. And yet, people keep opening grocery stores. Because the numbers on the surface look good. $2.6 million in revenue sounds impressive, until you subtract $2.58 million in costs and realize you're working 60-hour weeks for $50,000 a year. Here's the number that determines whether you make money in the grocery business. Inventory turns. How many times per year you sell through your entire inventory and replace it. The average grocery store turns inventory 12 to 15 times per year. High-performing stores, stores with good product mix, efficient ordering, and strong sales velocity, turn inventory 18 to 20 times per year. The faster you turn inventory, the less cash you have tied up in products sitting on shelves. The less product sits, the less spoilage, the less risk of obsolescence, the better your cash flow. If you can turn inventory faster than your competitors, you win. If you're slower, you lose. It's that simple. But controlling inventory turns requires systems. You need point-of-sale data that tracks what's selling and what's not. You need supplier relationships that allow flexible ordering. You need staff who understand inventory management and don't overorder because they're afraid of running out. Most independent operators don't have those systems. They're ordering based on intuition, based on what sold last week, based on what the distributor recommends. And they're sitting on $150,000 worth of inventory that turns 10 times a year when it should turn 15. That inefficiency is the difference between surviving and thriving. The grocery business is not a bad business. It's a hard business. It's a business where execution matters more than vision, where understanding the numbers, the real numbers, the cost per unit, the margin per category, the turn rate per product, determines success or failure. It's a business where you can do everything right and still lose because a competitor with deeper pockets moved in across the street, or because the neighborhood changed, or because a pandemic shut down offices and your lunchtime traffic disappeared. The chains understand this. That's why they operate at scale. They can afford to lose money on one store because 50 other stores are profitable. They can absorb a bad quarter. They have systems, data, leverage. You, as an independent operator, have none of that. What you have is proximity. You have responsiveness. You have the ability to serve a specific community in a way a 50,000 square foot supermarket cannot. If that's enough, if your location supports it, if your customer base values it, you can make $60,000 to $150,000 a year running a small grocery store. You will work harder than almost any other retail business. You will operate on margins that leave no room for error. And you will compete against opponents who have every structural advantage. But people need food, and some of them will buy it from you. You decide.